Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today we're going to be talking about 20 amazing sci-fi movies currently included with your Prime Video membership. So, 20 great sci-fi movies currently included with Prime Video. I'm going to be presenting these in pairs. They could make for great double features, especially if you've not seen both, but these pairs could also just be helpful. If you like one, there's a very good chance you're going to like the other one that I've paired it with. And we're going to start this list off with a couple of 90s throwbacks that still hold up in their own right, and they both feature a mixture of live action and animation. That is Small Soldiers and Cool World. Small Soldiers is family friendly, but it can be a little intense for very young viewers because it's about a bunch of action figures that come to life and they do not play nice. This is fairly violent for a family-friendly movie, but you've got a mixture of animation that was a little bit ahead of its time, as well as some practical effects from Stan Winston. So an all-around cool flick that's a little wilder than you might anticipate, again, from a family-friendly movie. And then Cool World is definitely not family-friendly. This was an early Brad Pitt performance, and in this movie he is sucked into Cool World, which has all sorts of crazy, wild animations, including a total smoke show voiced and essentially acted by Kim Basinger. While this is a fairly sexually charged movie, it is rated PG-13, so it's not like it's going to be overly offensive or anything for anybody. It is clearly dated because of all the hand-drawn animations, but that is what is so cool about it. You don't see animation styles like this very often anymore, and seeing a young Brad Pitt in the mix makes it even cooler somehow. Here are a couple of more retro picks that might be a little too weird for some people, starting off with Tank Girl. This is actually another 90s throwback, and it does have a cult following, but it's a fairly lesser-known movie, mainly because it is so bizarre. However, this movie features a killer 90s soundtrack featuring acts like Portishead. It also features some practical effects because there are some kangaroo men in the mix in this post-apocalyptic movie. As weird as that sounds, no, I'm not going to say it works. It does not work in this movie. It is too weird, but it's so weird that it's kind of hard to miss. I will say though, a lot of people hate this movie because it is so bizarre and it can be kind of grating. However, if it sounds the least bit interesting to you, it is worth checking out because it is a cult movie. And then Cherry 2000 is from 1987 and it shows this is a very dated movie about a dystopian future where men are more interested in sex robots than they are in real women. So interested in fact that the lead character has to travel out to the wastelands of the desert to try to find a Cherry 2000. The sex doll model that he really needs to have for some reason, and it turns into this sort of Mad Max wild thing. In no way would I say this is a great movie, not as good as most of the ones on this list, but it does make for a good midnight movie watch if you've never seen something like this. If you like the way I've described these, Tank Girl and Cherry 2000 take place out in the desert, have this great dated feel to them, and are just kind of cool if you're into that sort of thing. Now to change things up a bit, I've got a couple of slow burn, what we'll call, I guess, alien movies that are fantastic if you can be patient with Fire in the Sky and Europa Report. Now, Fire in the Sky is actually based on the abduction account of Travis Walton. He has made the rounds recently, even appearing on Joe Rogan, and this movie came out in 1993 and is supposedly based on actual events. Now, obviously, they changed things up for the movie, and there's no way to know if this guy's making things up or if it's real, but the movie supposes that it's real, and they did a great job of sucking you into it very slowly. This movie does feel very real. It also kind of feels like old X-Files episodes or something like that, so if you're into that, I highly recommend Fire in the Sky. And then Europa Report was made more recently. It's only about 10 years old, and it's about a team of astronauts on one of the moons of Jupiter that start to have weird things going on their base. Again, slow burn, but both of these are done in a way where that's very effective and it serves a purpose, and you get a much bigger impact towards the end of the movie as a result. Just be warned, there are some pacing issues with both of these. Now for a couple of intense, monster movies that both essentially take place in one place. The first of these movies is called Hostel or Hostile, tomato, but this is kind of a post-apocalyptic movie. You follow one woman who's out making the rounds, trying to pick up supplies and waters, where her camper gets stranded out in the middle of the desert, and even though it looks like she's alone, she definitely is not. She ends up having to face off with some sort of creature. Now, this is done on a very low budget, which is why it's in one location, but the director, Matthew Turi, did an excellent job making this feel very real. It doesn't look like a low budget movie for most of it, and he's actually got a new movie coming out called Meander that looks sick. Can't wait to see it. I dig what this guy's doing. This is an excellent little horror sci-fi gem that too few people have discovered so far. And then one from the UK that's a little bit of a horror comedy, Storage 24. It's about a bunch of people trapped in a storage facility that's essentially quarantined because there's something in there with them. Again, small budget, they make it work. I would not consider this one to be nearly as good as Hostel, but if you're in the mood for a few laughs and a couple of jump scares, Storage 24 is a fun watch. Now, if that doesn't strike you and maybe you're in the mood for something a little more psychedelic, I recommend checking out John Dies at the End and Beyond the Black Rainbow. Now, John Dies at the End does an excellent job of spoiling the movie in the title, but that is not the reason to watch this one. The reason to watch this one is all the crazy shit that takes place from the beginning to the end of this one. It does not matter what happens to John in this one. In fact, it does not matter whether John dies or not in this one. It matters what else happens to him. And this is a wild, weird movie that is going to be way too weird for a lot of you. It does deal in the absurd, and that's a lot of what it's about. There are crazy, wild things that happen in this movie that are not relevant to anything else going on in it, and that's kind of the point. Even though story elements and things that occur are not necessarily meshed together well, the tone in this movie is consistent all the way through. If you like weird, wild stuff, it's hard to do much better than John Dies at the End, except Beyond the Black Rainbow. This is actually from the same director of Mandy with Nicolas Cage, and while there's a lot in common with Mandy, Beyond the Black Rainbow has more of like a 2001 A Space Odyssey vibe. It's very bizarre, and it's also very oppressive. The lighting, the soundtrack, while I dig all of it, it's very brooding and almost anxiety-inducing. This one also does not feature too much of a story. The story elements are very thin here. This one's a little bit more of an experience. If you like the way this one looks and you like sort of retro wave soundtracks, this one is just bananas. And it really is interesting from a filmmaking perspective, but go into this one with little to no expectations and you may be pleasantly surprised, especially if you enjoyed Mandy. Now, I know I give you a ton of movies to watch on this channel, that's what I do, that's what I'm here for, but if it's still not enough, if you're still finding that you're surfing, trying to find things to watch, you feel like the well's drying up a little bit, keep in mind COVID shut production down for almost 2 years now, so we're gonna be in a movie drought for quite a while, but one way around this is to use a VPN service, and today's sponsor, CyberGhost VPN, is the right type of VPN service for movie lovers because they have specialized servers that target Netflix, Prime Video, Hulu, all the major streaming services in a bunch of different countries. So with the flick of a switch, you can just tell your computer, your streaming device, your smart TV, wherever you watch movies, I'm in the UK today, and you can then watch everything available to people in the UK, Canada, Australia, Germany, a whole handful of countries, opening up vast new libraries, again with the flick of a switch. Not only that, it's a VPN that keeps your web browsing safe, secure, private. It helps protect against identity theft. My USA audience, keep in mind, the NSA still can watch everything that we do. Even though they got busted doing it when they're not supposed to, they didn't stop for some crazy reason. But VPNs allow you to disguise yourself, keep yourself private, and my viewers, when you use the link in the description, you can pay for this for as little as $2.19 a month. Yeah. Less than half the cost of one movie rental, and it's super easy to use, and they offer a 45-day money-back guarantee, so there's virtually no risk. They've also got great 24/7 customer support to answer any questions and help you get it set up on multiple devices, which you can use up to 7 at the same time, and it's all the types of devices you're already streaming movies on, so it's a killer deal. Again, go to the link in the description, pay as low as $2.19 a month to unlock way more movies and shows than you could ever hope to watch. But speaking of movies and shows, let's move on with the rest of this sci-fi list.
We told you to run.
How'd you get on this phone? Who are you?
You have 10 seconds.
What the hell are you talking about?
Get down now.
Now, speaking of the NSA, if you want some paranoia based sci-fi movies, I recommend Take Shelter and Eagle Eye. Eagle Eye stars Shia LaBeouf, Michelle Monaghan, and Anthony Mackie well before he was famous, and Shia LaBeouf's character starts to notice that he's being followed and monitored via multiple electronic devices around him. Now, while Eagle Eye is kind of a big budget Hollywood thing that plays it fairly safe, the thing I like about it is once it takes off, the concept gets crazier and crazier and you end up with a pretty wild, fun sci-fi action with some really intense sequences. No matter how far-fetched they are fun to watch. This is a cool sci-fi flick, even if they do play it a little bit too safe. And then one that doesn't play it safe at all is Take Shelter. I've talked about this one recently, so I'll be brief, but in this movie, Michael Shannon begins to have these visions and dreams and is afraid that storms are coming that are going to be the end of the world. So he begins to prepare, and people around him begin to fear for his safety and his sanity. This is an excellent thriller with a sci-fi slant. Not only is Michael Shannon great, but you've also got a great performance from Jessica Chastain. A little bit of a slow burn, but a very interesting one that's really unlike anything else out there. Now, if it's creepy body horror you're interested in, you could go with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 1978 remake, or Splinter. Now, Splinter is an excellent little horror sci-fi gem about a group of people trapped in a convenience store because there is a critter outside that is horrifying, to say the least. As I said, this one features some intense body horror. If that is your jam, Splinter is a total gem. And then the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Donald Sutherland, I think is an excellent one. For the time period, it's got plenty of great practical effects, and it's just a nice sort of 70s update on a classic body snatcher story. Now, two hidden gems that only get weirder and wilder the longer you watch them are Split Second and Time Crimes. Now, Split Second stars Rutger Hauer as a detective in this dystopian future where London is sort of flooded and there's these crazy murders happening that appear to have some sort of cult ties. Not only is Rutger Hauer a total badass in this movie, but you've got gigantic badass guns, it's fairly bloody, and it's incredibly twisted. This movie just manages to get darker and darker the deeper you get into it, and it holds some surprises that are really cool, especially for like a vintage throwback midnight monster movie. Cannot recommend this one enough. And then Time Crimes is one that was also free to watch on Tubi. I just included that in my previous video, which featured a bunch of great movies that are free to watch on Tubi. By the way, if you do not use Tubi, I don't get paid to say this, I highly recommend it. They've got a bunch of great stuff over there and it's completely free. Just download it. It's available on whatever app you watch movies. But that said, Time Crimes is available there and here on Prime Video. It is Spanish language, but it is an amazing time travel movie. It also is unlike anything else. And this movie is a rabbit hole. The deeper you get into it, the more interesting and wilder it gets. I've loved this movie for years. If it's been a while since you've seen a time travel movie that had something different and interesting about it, Time Crimes is a great pick. Now, it's hard to have a good sci-fi list without at least one Spielberg pick in it, and I've got two here, with AI, Artificial Intelligence, and Minority Report. Now, I must say AI Artificial Intelligence will be leaving Prime Video in about a week. It'll be leaving at the end of July, which is as good a time as any to remind you if the subscribe button below this video is red, it means you're not subscribed. So click it, click the bell icon so you get notified when I put videos like this out so you do not miss the movies before they're gone, because even though most of these movies are going to be around for a little while longer, they all will eventually be leaving Prime Video. But AI Artificial Intelligence was actually supposed to be a collaboration between Spielberg and Stanley Kubrick. Then Stanley Kubrick died, but he was involved in the process for quite a while before production began. This movie is essentially the retelling of Pinocchio, and I think it is quite good. I do think they could have trimmed it down a little bit because it is incredibly long, but it's beautiful. Haley Joel Osment's performance is amazing. The vision of the future that Spielberg had for this just looks incredible and looks very, very convincing. If you've never seen this movie, I highly recommend it, but strap in because it is a long experience. And then Minority Report, I think, is one of the better sci-fi movies he's done this century. Not only is it packed with action, but it's got some really interesting sequences like the one with the little spider robots, all kinds of cool stuff going on in this movie, and again, an amazing vision of the future that I enjoy watching every couple of years or so. Now it's time for my top two picks, which have held up over multiple decades as two of the best sci-fi movies ever made, but pay attention closely because you may not want to watch both. I'm talking about Alien and The Abyss. Now, Ridley Scott's Alien is easily one of the best horror movies ever made, one of the best sci-fi movies ever made, certainly one of the best horror sci-fi movies ever made. And right now, not only can you watch it on Prime Video, but they also have a 4K version. Now, they are separate. It's not as if there's one version and you can pick 4K. Search for the movie and you will see both options. If you have a 4K TV and good internet connection, go that route for sure. This movie looks like it was filmed yesterday. Because it's such a classic, it has been remastered and kept up with and maintained, and just looks incredible. None of the effects look dated. The tension is built more expertly in this movie than most. I mean, it's top 10 in that regard. And not only that, so much of it is so iconic, you can easily rewatch it over and over and over again, even though you get halfway into the movie. It's around the 45-minute mark before anything intense really happens, before they make first contact with the aliens. Yet everything that happens before that is still so gripping and interesting. This is one of Ridley Scott's best movies. I would have loved to have paired it with Blade Runner, but it's not currently available, even though it does hop around on streaming services. However, James Cameron's The Abyss was also a major milestone in special effects. Even though some of its effects do look a little dated, most of them don't. In fact, most of the effects you see in this movie you won't realize are actually done in miniature on a soundstage with fog instead of water. But this one too, even though it is fairly long, it's just an incredible journey, and James Cameron is such an expert at keeping things moving and making movies feel really raw and interesting. However, I will say about The Abyss, the version they have on there has not been remastered. It's essentially like a VHS rip, but that is the list. Let me know in the comments below if there are any sci-fi gems that I missed on this list currently included with Prime Video. And also help me thank the Patreon supporters. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter and seeing your name here at the end of every video on this channel, just go to the Patreon link in the video description below, see what the benefits are, or click the other link to become a channel member right here on YouTube and get access to exclusive videos. But I will keep making these videos as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for watching out this Prime Video sci-fi list, and you will see me on the next one.